G'day everyone, welcome back again for another live Sony Rumours news. Just basically talk about anything really, and a question and answer time at the end of the chat. This is the pre-show. We'll give it a couple of minutes just to let people actually pop in. I notice there's quite a number of people already watching, so let's just see. I'm just going to say hi. G'day Tony, how you going mate? Nice to see you here. Got a number of things I'm actually going to discuss with you today. Some really interesting news actually, a couple of them anyway particularly are really quite interesting. Now if you are popping in a little bit later, just skip to where we have the Osler Images logo, because that'll be where we actually fully start. I'm giving it about 3 minutes before we actually start the full-on show. But look, before we actually do start, I just want to mention too another Facebook page that I'm actually launching. I just want to say hi to Vic as well, is here. So say hi guys if you are actually watching. I've had a number of people that are joining my Facebook group. Now I'm setting up a group on Facebook just for you guys, to give you something back. You're not being charged for this at all, but it's an area where I can show things like behind the scenes. I can show my before and after editing like I've actually done here. You can see Ashley on the right there is unedited, and on the left there she's edited. I'm going to be posting these all the time. I'll actually be posting another one of these as soon as we're finished here actually. I think I'm going to post another one on there. It'll also be an area where I can show more behind the scenes stuff, images before and after, so you can see how I've taken them in my editing, things like that as well. But of course it's also an area where you guys can post, we can all critique one another, as long as it's positive and constructive. So it'll be an area where basically I can continue showing the things that I'm doing on YouTube, and it's a way that I can give you back something, and I'll be doing some live broadcasts on there just specially for the Facebook group. I've called it the Photography and Video Fusion School, because basically it's going to be dealing with my transition from photography also to videography. As you know, I do a lot of fusion in weddings and things like that, so it's also going to be taking you through that as well, so I'll be showing that as we go along on this journey together. I haven't put in limitations on there apart from nudes, but basically you can post things, you can post your links to your sites, if you're after a bit of work. Like I said, this is for you guys. This is not for me, this is for you guys. So I want you to get as much as you can out of this, and hopefully it'll help your business and photography grow as well. So yeah, so please join us. I'll put the link in down below so that you can actually access it. Now you do have to be involved in photography or videography though, so I am only going to open this up to people that are in the industry. Of course, if you're learning, you're welcome to come in, but you know, I just don't want salesmen trying to sell stuff and things like that, because we won't be allowing sales and things like that in there though. This is just for you guys to learn and to share your images, see what my work is like, the before and after, some behind the scenes work as well. So basically it's just to say thank you guys for following me. I'm just around nearly 6,000 followers now, so it might pop over there today up to 6,000, and I just want to thank you. So this is a freebie for you all. So I just want to also say hi to Ben. Oreo's here. We've got Ion here, I think it is. MC Presso is here as well. Yes, at last, my first live show from Denmark. Good to see you made it, mate. And also I'll be posting on there where I'm going to go live, so it's one way to know when I'm actually going to go live on YouTube as well. So, you know, it might really help you know when I'm going to go on live, because I know a lot of people are talking about that all the time, about when am I actually going to go on live and when am I doing things. But yeah, so it's going to be a great site. Like I said, it's only just started, but we've already got a number of people that have asked to come in, and I have admitted them, and they're already starting to post some of their work on there. Like I said, I've also posting my work of before and after, so you'll see how the editing is actually done through this site more than what I'm actually doing on YouTube. So it's certainly well worth joining us there if you're following me. Jess said, it's hello here from Denmark, it's 1 AM at night. But I'm not going to go to bed until about an hour because I'm free from work tomorrow. Well, that's good, Jess. That's good that you made it. Ben said the request has been sent. So I will be allowing all those, as particularly the ones that are obviously following me. I'll put you in as soon as the show's over. So if you do want to join, I'll check that once we're actually finished. But let's actually get down to news. Now, you guys in the live chat, just keep talking amongst yourselves and stuff like that. I will bring up a question at the end where we can actually go through questions. I better put my watch on silent. So I will be putting up a question time at the end so that you can, I'll answer all your questions. So you can ask me anything in there and I'll go back to it, like I said, at the end, and we'll go through that together. So let's have a look. We'll just bring up, I'll quit this because I'm just going to take that down. Now I'm going to switch over to the Acer Images sign. So if you have started later on, you can skip to this point if you want to see where we're actually going to go over the news and stuff. So hang on and we'll start the show. G'day everyone from down under here in Melbourne. We've got another show for you today with news and rumours. I've got some interesting things to actually show you as well. When I say show you, but some interesting news stories that I've actually found over the coming days. So we're going to go all through those together. I've just put in a previous comment just a few minutes ago about joining our Facebook page. This is for you guys, so please, if you can, join that, because it's going to be a great site where we can all share things together, and I'll be showing my behind-the-scenes work, and I'll post that link in the link below. Also, all the news stories that I'm actually showing you today will also be linked underneath as well as soon as this is finished. I'll put those down there so that you can go through the news bulletin yourself. There will be a question and answer coming up at the end. So if you do want to ask any questions, please leave those in the live chat now, because I'll go back to those over the end and we can go through them all together with you. So just ask any questions that you feel you'd like to know in there as well. Can be about anything photography related at all. So yeah, so list that. The other thing too is with the site too, guys, you don't have to be a Sony shooter to be in that site. It's for anyone that wants to learn photography and videography and just sharing for all of us. So the site is not just for that. I'm talking about the Facebook site. It is for anyone that's interested in learning photography at all. So don't feel like you have to be using Sony gear. You don't. You can be using anything. All right, so let's get stuck into the latest news and rumours, because I've got a number of things that I'd like to actually show you. So the first thing that I'm actually going to talk to you about is this new lens that has just been released, this Voigtlander. I'd love to get my hands on this. After using the Voigtlander for the GH5, I just adore that lens. I love the way it feels. I love the focusing on it. It's not fly-by-wire. It's just your manual focusing. But to be honest, the focusing on these lenses is so good, and with focus peaking, it's just a breeze to be doing that type of work. So I'd love to have a look at this lens. Now it's a 1.2, so this would be gorgeous. And there's a couple of sample images that you can see down here that have been posted that look really quite stunning. So let me just make this a bit smaller. So yeah, so I'd love to try this lens just to give it a go in low light. I mean, 1.2 would be amazing on a full frame camera. I'd adore to shoot at that aperture range, and particularly if you're shooting video, this lens would be stunning on the A7S II or the A7R or even the A9. I mean, it'd be a gorgeous lens. Again, a lot of people are put off by the manual focus, but for me, that's not an issue at all. Once you get used to it, guys, if you haven't tried it before, start to do it, because it's actually really easy to do. And I nearly am always doing it now when I'm doing my video work. Is nearly always on manual focus, apart from if I'm using a gimbal. If I'm not using a gimbal, I am manually focusing all the time, because it does work much better. So when you do get used to it, it's actually quite easy. And like I said, the advantage of using your mirrorless cameras is it has that focus peaking, and also you can zoom in on the image to get focus. So that makes it so much easier to grab focus. But looking at these images, and again, I'll have the link down below. You can also see a few that are on Google Photos there as well, but the images do look stunning. I mean, like I said, for low light work, this would be, I think it would be fantastic. So let me know whether you think you'd like to sort of have a go at something like that, whether you're interested in the Voigtlander. Like I said, the one I've used for the GH5, I absolutely adore, and I think I'll probably get another one for the GH5. I'm so happy with it. I may get the 17 or I think it's a 45 or something like that. But I may get another couple of them in the coming months. So that's the first story. So that's now obviously released. And it's the FE lens, so it's a 40mm 1.2 FE lens. The next one I wanted to talk about was this, because I noticed Manny Ortis, who I really like, I'm actually friends with him, he actually has put up a video talking about crop sensor versus full sensor, and I've talked to you about this before if you go back over my some of my previous videos, using the A6500. And this is why I tell people that you should not be afraid of using the A6500 or even the A6000 or the A6300, because a lot of the images that you actually shoot, there's no difference at all. You will not pick that difference. It's that close. The only time you'll really notice it is if you need extreme depth of field or you really want to use very low light. And even then, like the A6500, I've often shot that at 6400 ISO in very dark conditions, and it's been really quite good. It's still not as good as, say, something like an A7S or an A7S II, and it's not quite as good as the A7R2, but it's very close. But if you're talking about shooting in normal lighting scenarios, I honestly don't think you'd pick much of a difference between using the crop as against full frame. So have a look at Manny's video, because it's interesting to see it when you look at that video, to see how close the images actually are and how little differences there actually are between the two of them. Let me know what you think about that too in the chat, because we'll go back to this a little bit later on. Obviously, you can play that video as well to get the full sense of how they work together, because you can watch Manny's YouTube channel. I may even do one of these too in the coming weeks as well. I've still got so much stuff that I've got to put on over the last shoots that I've done over the last few days that I'm going to post over the coming couple of weeks, so it'll be a while before I get onto it. But it is an interesting thing. But it's like I've said to you before, don't discount the A6500 or even the A6000 or whatever, that range, APS-C cameras, the Fuji cameras, the Panasonic cameras, whatever. Don't count them out, because you can get professional results from those cameras. So think about it that way, that when people, often I get that all the time, people are saying to me, can I get professional results from an A6500 and an A6300? Yes, you can. There's no problem at all. And I use them in my weddings all the time, at the same time as my A9 and A7R2. And the results are just beautiful. You wouldn't know that they were taken from a crop sensor. So yeah, have a look at that article anyway. Another interesting article that I saw here too is, I noticed this is an SR3, just released this morning. They're saying that Sony have potentially going to release a new 20mm f2.8 lens. Now they're saying down in here in the comment box that it will be a new 2.8 full-frame E-mount lens later this year. This will be part of the affordable FE lenses. So what they're saying is it's going to be like a similar lens like the 51.8 and the 28 f2, so a cheaper lens. I'm not really totally sure why they're releasing this lens, to be honest, but let me know in the comments whether you think this is a worthwhile lens. But I mean, I'm not sure whether they need this lens, but I suppose it is wider than using the 20mm version. But I'm more looking forward to what they say down here, where they're saying that the 135mm and the 400mm FE lenses are on Sony's announcement roadmap too. So clearly they are looking at other lenses. But I mean, the other advantage of this too is it's going to be an affordable lens, looking at this article. But again, Sony are still releasing lenses. So when people say there's no lenses, they are releasing lenses now all the time, or lenses are in development. So at least they are innovating with their lenses. So, and again, if you like the 20mm focal length, this will be really good for you. It's not a focal length that I like to use. I like the 35mm focal length, to be honest. 20 is not a focal length that I would use very much. But having said that, I've been using the 10mm Voigtlander on my GH5, which gives you roughly an equivalent of 20, and I've been quite enjoying using that lens as a wide angle. So this may be a really good wide angle if you want reasonable low light, because 2.8 would be quite good in most scenarios. So yeah, so let me know what you think about that. Another thing that I wanted to talk to you about here too was that this is there's a review now of the tilt shift lens. This is the Samyang FE tilt shift. So you can go and look at this article in the comments down below when you're finished, hopefully, not now. But basically, there's a whole review of this lens. They're saying that it's very well built. Now, tilt-shift lenses are used in architecture where you get the buildings which are slanted over, and if you use tilt-shift lenses, the lens moves up and down or sideways so that you can fix that distortion. So if you are shooting a lot of architecture, a tilt-shift lens is really an amazing lens to use. You can also use it too for shooting models with buildings behind them, so the buildings don't look like they're falling down over them, which you get that perspective sometimes where the building can look like it's falling backwards or whatever because of that perspective. So this could be an interesting lens to try. I'd love to have a play with that if I could ever get my hands on one. I've used tilt-shift lenses before, but only the Nikon ones. I haven't used anything on the Sony cameras. And again, there's a whole stack that you can read about that article if you check this article down below. Another thing here that I noticed too is this is sort of an extension of how Nikon said that there was no pros using Sony gear. And I saw this on Sony Rumours that they're saying that Ira Black is using Sony gear. Now, he's a National Geographic photographer. Check him out if you want to see some of his work and how amazing actually his work is. So you can go and look at all his work and stuff like that, and you'll realise when they say there's no professionals out there using Sony gear, it just makes me laugh. I mean, there's heaps and heaps of us using Sony gear. Again, it's just paranoia that, you know, companies like that were saying such stupid things. This other one was a really interesting article. So I just noticed yesterday that I read that France has banned photoshopped images for commercial work, and they've put it under French law. Now, it's not only that, but you get a big fine if you actually do it. They're saying that you can be charged €37,500 or 30% of the cost of creating the advertisement. Because they're saying that due to people suffering anorexia and things like that, that they're saying if you have altered the image at all, it must be stated in France that it has been photoshopped. Now, I think they're only talking about commercial work, because looking at this, it does only mention, obviously, commercial work. But what they're saying down here is that it does have to come with a new Photoshop warning, and they're hoping that it will discourage unhealthy extreme thinness among people. So that's just basically come out. Now, the interesting thing is that Getty Images, and it says that down here, that the French move has prompted Getty Images, a US-based international photography agency, to ban any creative content depicting models whose body shapes have been retouched to make them look thinner or larger from Sunday. Now, I did get an email from Getty Images because I did submit a couple of images years ago. I haven't done it for a long time, to be honest, but I actually got that email sent to me too from Getty Images, so that is real. I did actually get that to say they're no longer doing that, so you've got to be very careful. Now, I'm not sure how they're going to police that, because unless they've seen the original, I don't know how they're going to police that it's actually been retouched or edited as well. So I'm not sure how that's going to go. But France seems to be the only place at the moment that has got that in law, and like it is a massive fine if you actually don't list it down as being a photoshopped image. So that's really quite interesting. So again, we'll have a discussion about that in the comments. Let me know what you think about that, because I'd be really interested to know what you guys think about that. Do you think it's good, or do you think it's bad, or do you think France are going a bit silly? Or I always retouch my images, but again, it's never a lot. When I say that I retouch my images, and you'll see that if you join my Facebook group, you'll see the amount sometimes that I do retouch. Usually with girls and stuff like that, I won't retouch their body shape much at all. Very, very little, because for me, you don't want to make the images look like it's not them. So that's a point for me. But I will always do some amount of skin softening. Like you can see when you're looking at this image here, that the lighting obviously is not very good, because the shiny stuff on the skin basically does my head in. And coming from a high-end retoucher, I feel the need to sort of fix that. So I would be fixing that if if that was me editing that image. But again, you've got to be careful like how much you actually do the retouching on girls or even anyone. Don't make it look like it's not them. Be very, very subtle about what you do in that retouching. My more retouching, and you'll see the one that I post on my Facebook page today, I went from a very sort of a lighter image down to a very dark looking image, and that's more the retouching that I like to do. Is a bit more artistic in the way that I work, but that's just me retouching. But it's not physically changing a girl's body shape and doing all those sort of things, because that's not really ethical at all. I will occasionally do nipping and tucking, but it's only very subtle. It would never be where a bride or a model would know that that's been done, because they will never see the original image. They'll only see the retouched image. But it would never be that someone would say, boy, you've pushed her hips in, or you've pushed her thighs in, or whatever. That just wouldn't get done with me. So I'm always careful about what I will retouch, and you do have to be very careful about that, guys. The retouching that you do is ethical, and you haven't made her look wafer thin, pushed her waist right in, and things like that. So occasionally, I'll lift an eye and do things like that, and I might make the hair a little bit more body by bringing it out, but there are little things that I'll do as well. But let's have a discussion about that. I'll be interested to know what you guys think in a second when we go over to questions. So that's just become law. Now the next one we'll look at is this. This was interesting as well. Petapixel have actually said that Canon full-frame mirrorless cameras may arrive in 2018 with a new sensor. So they're saying that there's rumours that they're going to have 3 versions of this camera. Where did I read that? There. It's saying a less reliable rumour is that there may be as many as 3 full-frame cameras currently being developed by Canon. 1 mirrorless camera with native EF mount. So they're saying they're hoping to use the EF mount lenses. I don't know how that's going to work, but it'll have to be a pretty big body, but we'll see. A small mirrorless camera and a new lens mount and a fixed lens full frame camera. And they're saying down here that they don't expect it before August 2018. But interesting. I mean, let me know what you think about that, guys. I know Nikon have been touting seriously over the last couple of weeks that they're going to release a full frame mirrorless, and they have to. Let's face it, these companies, Nikon and Canon, have to release a full-frame mirrorless camera or they're going to be in trouble. Having gone back, over when I borrowed the A1, the Profoto A1, having used the Canon camera, I do not want to go back that way, guys. And I'm not trying to bag people that use that camera, the digital SLRs, because they love them, and that's fine for them. But for me, coming from the Nikon full-frame big cameras like the D4S, and going to the Sony mirrorless has been a game changer for me, and it just reinforces it more for me. Going back to the Canon camera and carrying that big camera around with the big 70-200, oh my God, I didn't like it at all. I hated it, to be honest, and I kept going to look through the EVF all the time. It's things that I'm used to. Now, admittedly, that might be now because I'm used to shooting the Sony mirrorless, but I just find it so much easier and just so much more natural and so much quicker to do the things that I wanted to do. I mean, I know you can use the back of the screen, but if it's very bright around you, the surroundings, you can't see the back of the screen. So to be able to use the EVF to gauge your exposure, things like that, I just wouldn't like to go back to that anymore at all. And I don't think those people on those systems understand what they're missing. And to be honest, if you're shooting Sony or Fuji or Panasonic or whatever you're shooting now, go out and hire a digital SLR and just try it, and you'll understand straight away what I'm saying. It really feels like I've gone back to almost like a dinosaur sort of thing. It's just awful. I hated it. So let me know too what you think about that in the discussion too. Look, the results I got from that camera were incredible. They were beautiful, and there's nothing wrong with the camera itself, but I have to say that the Canon was nowhere near as good as my Sony full frame cameras in noise, and 3200 you could see quite a bit of noise in the images in the background, and I had to use a little bit of noise reduction to get rid of that noise, whereas I don't have to do that with the Sonys at all. 3200s is, you know, and the A7R and the A9 is nothing, so they are much cleaner. But working wise, the focus was incredible. I tried the dual pixel focus and it worked amazingly. I can't wait till Sony get the equivalent of that. I mean, that would be amazing to get dual focusing for the video. So that was really, really good. But again, once I went to my A9 and using eye detect, and it was just, I just didn't want to go back. But let me know what you think about that too in the comments, and we'll go over there in a second. So it looks like anyway we may have some mirrorless announcements next year from Canon and Nikon. I'm looking forward to it because remember, we need innovation, and Sony need to be pushed. Fuji need to be pushed. Panasonic need to be pushed, because then they will innovate and we'll all get better cameras. There's no way known I want these companies to go broke. So I am really hoping that they do something really good, because it'll benefit us all. And lastly, I wanted to show you this because this was really cool before we go on to the questions. I saw this morning from Petapixel as well. This was a really interesting article because it's talking about the new Pixel camera. Let me just move this because I need to get this out of the way. It's showing the new Pixel stabilization. Wait till you see this because this is incredible. What they're showing on the left-hand side is the OIS off, the image stabilization, and on the right they're going to be showing you the image stabilization on. So this is the new Google Pixel 2, that was announced yesterday. So I'm going to play it and just have a look at the difference. So you can see the one on the left-hand side there is, obviously it's being shot on a bike or something, is the one that's not stabilized, and the one on the right is the one that is stabilized. Now look, it might not be fantastic, the stabilized version, but I'm telling you I know which one I'd prefer to watch, and if I was trying to share something, I know which one I would like to share. The things that they're starting to do now in mobile phones are just incredible. And I was looking at that this morning thinking, wow, that is unbelievable if that is true. They're saying how it's amazing how effective it is in smoothing out extremely shaky footage. And you can see how shaky that footage is actually on that left-hand side as against on the right-hand side. So I'm not sure what voodoo they're doing with that system. But again, I'll stick that link below and you can have a look at it because it's talking about that stabilization as well. So yeah, incredible. All right, so let's go to questions. Let me bring this questions box up. Where are we on this one? And fire away your questions, guys, because I'd love you to have some questions for me. A lot of people there are obviously saying hello. A few people have got on the first time because they're very late, like in Denmark. It was 1 o'clock or something in the morning. People are asking for requests to come onto my Facebook page, and I'll look at those as soon as I'm finished here, guys, and I'll add you in. So yeah, and I'm going to post in another before and after picture in a minute. Max Mercer said, hey, found this site with a guy who have a lot of Sony lenses pictures with everyone. Oh, that's interesting. You should post that in the Facebook page. We can have a look. Yes, you can. You can post it in the Facebook one. Hi, Dover. How are you? Such an amazing father-in-law? That's Chantel. That's my daughter-in-law. Hi, Chantel. I just noticed you there. That's so funny. Good to see you watching live. I don't know whether you're still there anymore. That cracked me up. I was reading that. I didn't realise that was you, Chantel. Chantel's such a beautiful person. She's got 2 gorgeous granddaughters that she's given me. What else? David said, what's going on? Not much, David. So I'm hoping a few of you asked questions. Ben said, there was a time when all focusing was done manual. I know, and that's the thing. The thing, guys, is you shouldn't underestimate how nice it is to do manual focusing, particularly if you get a good manual focusing lens. I have to be honest, focusing with the standard Sony lenses any of the mirrorless camera normal lenses is not really that nice because of the fly-by-wire. It just doesn't feel really nice to sort of smoothly rack focus. The second you go into using a manual focus like these Voigtlanders or other lenses, it's just stunning. And there is one lens that I use. I'm going to grab it. Stay there. This is one lens that I'm actually using. I'll just click over to here. This is an old Nikon lens that I had. This one it's an old, what was it? It's an old 35mm. I'm not sure whether I can get it focused. Let's see. Yeah, it's an old 35mm 2.8 lens. So I've had to have the Metabones adapter on there. But again, the lens focusing ring on this is just gorgeous to use. Now, again, you've got your manual aperture, which you're sort of using through, where are we? Let's see, up through here. So that's how you adjust your aperture. But it's just the focusing, because it's not fly-by-wire, the focusing is just buttery smooth on this. So this is a 35mm lens. And I'm actually going to try, I might be using this, the reason why I've kept this is because I might use this for lensing, where you hold the lens off the actual camera itself, so it's not mounted on the camera, and you can move the lens around to get some interesting results. Because you need to do that with the Metabones adapter on there, I think, to get it to actually work correctly. But I'm going to research that, and I'll do a video of it and show you how it actually works. I noticed that Philip Bloom the other day did one about it, and it looked really interesting. So if you check Philip Bloom's video, he'll show you what this lensing actually is, and it was in his last video, I think, that he put up. That was really interesting. So I'm going to give that a go, and this is a perfect lens for it. It has to be a manual lens that you can also, you do the focusing by moving the lens around. But if I put this on the camera and focus manually, it's stunning. All of you probably should try and buy some sort of a vintage lens that gives you that manual focusing ability where it's not fly-by-wire, and try it, and you'll see what I mean about how beautiful it is to actually do racking focus and things like that. So it's well worth having a go at doing it. MC Perso said, anybody know when the next Sony announcement will be? Well, we're all hoping before Christmas. I mean, I'm hoping there's one before Christmas. I'd love to see, you know, an A7 III announced, or a new A6 700, something like that. It may still happen. Clearly, though, I don't think we're going to see announcements for any cameras until next year, or releases of any cameras until next year. I think they're just happy with pushing the A9 at the moment, giving that time to sort of do sales, I think. But we're all hoping that there is an announcement sometime later this year. Mike's here, so hi Mike, how are you? Alteric's here, good to see you here, Alteric. Sam saying good day, hi, how are you, Sam? Who else was saying that? Sam said, I'm with you, I don't see a need for a 28 f2. Well, it's actually 20mm f2. Let me know, do you guys think there's a need for that 20mm f2.8 camera? Ben's here. G'day, Ben. How you going, mate? No news on the A7 III yet. No, there's no news at all at this stage. And you know what? The Sony Rumours sites and stuff have gone very quiet on it. So it's not looking even good that there's going to be an announcement this year the way that it's going. I haven't heard anything. There's not been a boo about anything about these sort of things. It's just the lens rumours are starting to pop up. So let's hope that they do release something fairly soon, or announce it at least. But yeah, there's nothing been announced at all. Ira said 24mm doesn't seem a useful focal length for a tilt shift lens considering implied crop factor. Yeah, and you could be right, Oreo. It might not be wide enough. That could be a real interesting thing. You are going to have to stand back to do a lot of buildings with that lens. MC Preso said A6500 only 1/4000th of a second. Does that matter versus 8000? Not really. I've never had that where it's been a limitation for me. 1/4000th of a second is really quite good. The only time that's really going to matter is if you're trying to overpower the sun. If you're trying to overpower the sun with flash, yes, it will matter because you do need more to overpower the sun. But having said that, since I'm now shooting with my A9 a lot, having that ability to go up to 1/32,000th of a second to shoot very low depth of field is incredible. Just let me have a quick drink. yeah, it's incredible having that ability to go up there and shoot 1/32,000th of a second and still shoot at 1.4 in daylight. That really can give interesting results. But having said that, the 1/4000th, I've never had an issue with it with my A6500 or the A6300. I know that's a limitation and I'll work around that. So for me personally, it's not a big deal. I wish it was 1/8000th of a second, yes, but it's not really a big deal. That was it. Any news on the A7 III? I've already answered that. No, nothing at all. Sam said, I think everyone will stamp their images as Photoshop from now on, thus losing its intended purpose. After all, most, if not all, images are touched up to some extent. I know it's going to be interesting to see how that limits the amount of work that people are able to do. There's in no way is it's going to affect the average person that you're working for, because clearly if I do a shoot for models and they're building a modeling portfolio, or even if I'm doing a portrait shoot of a family or whatever, they still want those images retouched. I can tell you that now, that they will not want the images unretouched. I've never ever had someone say to me, David, don't retouch the images. So that's an interesting side of it. I think it's only probably going to affect if you're doing stuff that's more commercial type stuff that's in advertising, that you're going to have to say this, because you'll have to cover yourself in case if they found out and then you actually sent this massive fine. So I think I would be covering myself if it was for commercial work in France. It hasn't hit in the US yet or in anywhere else, so I don't think. I've only noticed that there. What else have we got? Oreo said, looking into my Canon 5D Mark II after 2 years shooting with the A7R II feels like peeping through a keyhole. I know, and I agree with you, Oreo. It's like I said, after shooting the 5D Mark IV, I didn't enjoy it at all. I couldn't wait to get back onto the Sonys, to be honest. And like I said, that's not saying anything against people that are shooting digital SLRs. It's just me personally. I felt like I was going back in time and I hated it. I didn't like it at all. Not having that viewfinder particularly was awful. And I'm so used to using it now. I kept going up and looking at the viewfinder and it wasn't working. And, you know, because I'm used to shooting now with the Sony, that became an issue. I didn't like it at all. Like I said, if you've only ever shot Sony, try if you can to get a digital SLR and go and shoot it and just see how different it actually is. What else have we got here? MC Perso said, have you upgraded your firmware to the GH5? Yes, I have. How is the AF? Not really any different. Look, it's not good in autofocus at all. It's fantastic for photography. If you're doing photography, the autofocus is superb on the GH5. It's incredibly fast actually. In video though, it sucks. But again, I'm not using autofocus in video, so it doesn't matter to me. But the other features for that GH5 upgrade were amazing. Some of the new shooting formats are incredible. The things that they gave you in a firmware update, I wish Sony would do that for us, honestly, because the amount of stuff that they gave you in that GH5 firmware update was incredible. Sony, you need to lift your game. Jess said, I've purchased the Tonica 20mm f2 lens for Sony FE, so I was probably a little too quick to buy this lens because the Sony's upcoming 20mm 2.8 with AF may be a better buy. Well, it may be, but we don't know just yet, so we'll have to wait and see how much that is. I mean, being a native lens, it probably will be quite a good lens. But, you know, whether you need 20mm, it's up to you, I suppose, whether you like shooting that format. I use the 16 to 35 quite a bit in weddings and stuff like that. More at the wide angle, though, for when I need to. And I do quite like that, but I'm not sure how often I'd use the 20. But remember, I've just bought the Voigtlander 10mm, which is 20mm, and I quite like using that. So there we go. What else have we got here? Photo Trekker said, I almost bought the Firen, but I ended up with the Batis 18. That'd be a nice lens. I'd love to try the Batis 18. That'd be a lovely lens, I think. Are you happy with that lens? Altric said, I can't wait to get rid of my Canon 1DX for the A7 III or the A9. I was so happy to get back onto my A9, guys. I just couldn't wait to get back on it on the shoot when I had the Profoto A1. Halfway through the night, I did switch back to the Sony, and I was so much happier shooting with the Sony. It was just like, it was just happiness. Can't explain that enough. It's, yeah. Chantel said, oh, still watching. Oh, hi, Chantel. Good to see you still watching. Altrix said, free lensing. Yes, that's what I'm going to be doing with this lens. So I'm going to be trying some free lensing with it. It should be really cool. You get some beautiful out of focus looks and stuff like that as well. What else have we got? Jess said, just bought the A7R2 and love the quick picture quality, but what kind of AF do you mostly use on your A7R2? Now, Jess, I'm so glad you bought that camera. I think that's still amazing. I use that all the time. I mostly now trust the camera to use wide area autofocus and face detect or eye detect if I'm dealing with models and people. Otherwise, I just use wide area. The one thing you've got to learn when you go into Sony is to let the camera, trust the camera to do that for you. And it's even more important when you go with the A9 because the A9 is so much better even again. And I trust the wide area focus a hell of a lot. And then obviously, if it becomes more critical to you, I'll use the center movable spot and you know, movable spot, and I can just actually move to where I need to go if I want to take over control of focusing. So I use flexible spot for that. But most of the time, I'm just using wide area now, and I'm finding that works perfect for me. The thing is, and this is what happens to a lot of people that are coming over from the digital SLR cameras, they don't trust the Sony system enough, the focusing, and that's what that camera's built around, is that predictive focusing, and most of the time it works really, really well. If not, then you can quickly switch over to flexible spot. What else have we got here? Ben said some of the vintage Minolta lenses work very well on the Sony, and they would, Ben, yes. And I'd love to try some of those vintage lenses. I would love to get my hands on some just to try it. But like I said, guys, if you can, purchase at least one so you can try the focusing with these vintage lenses and try it with not fly-by-wire. You'll love it. Photo Trekker said, I didn't have the Batis 18. I would have been interested in the 20 Sony FE. Okay, if you didn't have that, cool. Altrix said, I would like dual cards in the A9, but I've been thinking of getting two A7R2s for weddings. Look, there's no problem with doing that at all, Altric. Like I said, it's a great camera. I'm not sure, to be totally honest, though, whether I'd be getting two A7R2s. I'd get one, obviously. I'd wait and see what the A7 III has to offer, because I think that may be a better match for you, is to get something like an A7 III when it's released, hold off on that second purchase of the A7R2. Obviously, having one is amazing, where you can use that for the dynamic range resolution if you want to blow things up massive. But for focusing and stuff like that, it's nowhere near as good as what the A9 would be, and I'm thinking that the A7 III will be probably similar to how the A9 focuses. So I would definitely not buy two A7R2s. I'd buy just one, hold off, and wait and see what they release in the next Sony cameras. Ben said no Coke Zero today. No, it's a bit early yet, Ben. After lunch, I'll be having Coke Zero. As soon as we finish this chat, I'm down for a coffee. Ion Z said, is there no news on the Sony A7 III? No, there's not. Should I spend money on a Tamron 150-600 G2 lens for my only A77 II? Well, I'm not sure, Ion. Like I said, I haven't used those lenses. If anyone in the live chat can answer that for Ion, I'd love you to answer that. I haven't used the A77 II either, so someone else may be able to give you an opinion on that. I can't. Richard said, hi. Oliver, how are you, mate? Altric said, what other lens should I get for weddings right now? I have the 85 1.8 and I need to get one more. You'll need a wider lens, Altric, and I'd get the 35. If you can't afford the 35 1.4, get the 35 2.8. There's also the Samyang, I think it is, isn't there? But you definitely need a wider angle lens. I can shoot probably 90% of my weddings with the 35 1.4 and the 85 Batis. And then occasionally I'll go for the 16 to 35 if I need something wider. And I'll also use the 70 to 200 if I need compression. So I do bring that lens out as well. But like I said, 90% of my wedding shoots and portrait shots are shot with the 35 1.4 and the 85 Batis. So for me personally, they're my two must-have lenses. What else have we got? Ben said it's mandatory in the US to Photoshop photos of Trump so he doesn't look like as much of a fathead. That's not nice, Ben. Photo Tracker said, unless there's a problem with the A7 III, I bet it's announced later this year and available first quarter next year. And you might be right. I'll be surprised if they don't announce anything with the releasing sometime later on. Ben said, laugh out loud, he's talking about the Coke. MC Perso said, is the GH photo shoot skipped? No, I'm still going to do that photo shoot. I actually really want to do it. I just haven't had time. I put up a video just recently of it used in low light with the Voigtlander, but I just haven't had time to do that photo shoot with the GH5 yet, and I will do it. But being the GH5, I'll have to do that and the reason why this has taken me longer to do is because being the GH5, and I'm not certain how the results will look using that as on a full-on photo shoot, that will have to be a free shoot for someone, so I'm going to have to source a model. That won't be a problem. Every time I ask for models, I get them, no problem at all. But because I'm not earning money on that, it's sort of on the back burner as against all the other shoots that you guys see where I'm being paid to do those shoots. So it's harder for me to find the time to fit these unpaid shoots in. So I'm definitely going to do it because I really am interested in trying it, and particularly to use it with off-camera flash, because I'd love to try and work it with my pro photos and just see the results I can get using the GH5 as against my Sony. So no, it's definitely going to happen. I just need to get time to do it. Photo Tracker said, very happy with the Batis 18mm. Love the Zeiss colour. Yep, and I find the same thing with my Batis. I love the colour that Batis gives me. Altric said, I will post a picture I did freelancing on Facebook. Cool, yeah, post it on there, Altric. What else have we got? Robert said, hi from Alabama. Hi, Robert, how are you? Terry Tung said, I have a number of Nikon F-mount lenses. Which adapter would you recommend for the A9 or the A7R2? I'd get the dumb adapters. I wouldn't be getting any of these autofocus adapters. Just get the Metabones, and that's all. That's the one that I just use. Is that one? And I can recommend that. It wasn't too expensive. I can't remember how much it was. I've had it for a while, but you're much better off to use the dumb adapters. Don't go for one of those where it tries to autofocus, because they just don't work well from the tests that I've done in the camera shops. I wouldn't do it at all. Richard said, I'm thinking about getting the 35 1.4. Get it, Richard. That lens is my favourite lens. That with the Batis 85. I adore that lens, 35 1.4. It's stunning. Beautiful. Declicked aperture ring is amazing for video. It's nice and smooth focus. It's gorgeous rendering. I'm really happy with the out of focus part to it. The bokeh is lovely. So yeah, I'm actually thinking it is one of my favorite lenses. And also, don't discount the 35 2.8 Sony lens. That lens is so sharp. It's incredible, and I love that lens for street photography and stuff like that. If I'm going to do run and gun type stuff, it's a great lens to have that 35 2.8. There's no way I'd sell that lens. And again, I use that all the time on a second camera. My second shooter usually uses that too for the inside bridal shoots and stuff like that. She's using the 35 2.8. Espresso said, hi, Susie, no arms, no cookies. Susie in the background. Hi, Susie. She's not even looking. Turn around, Susie. Boys can't see you. There we go. There's Susie in the background. Turned her around. Oreo said, waiting for the release of the A7 III is also a smart move for people who want to buy the A9 because of the price of the A9 is likely to decrease a bit as a consequence. It may, Oreo, yes, that could be a possibility. But I think that, like I was saying before, I wouldn't be buying two A7R2s. I'd be only having one. And like I said, the way that I'm shooting most of all my weddings, I'm actually going to have the A7 IX, which will probably do 90% of the work. The other 10% of the work is going to be sort of switched between the A6 500 and the A7R2. For the big formal shots that I think I may use, or the brides may get blown up to massive posters, because sometimes brides do get massive posters, huge. And if I'm doing those shots, I want the resolution there to be able to blow them up and still have that detail. So I am still going to probably do a lot of the bridal formal shots using the A7R2. So that's important to me. So remember, there's no one perfect camera. So you do think you still need a camera that's high resolution for the type of work that I have. So there's no way known I'll be getting rid of my A7R II. If they release an A9R, I won't get that immediately. I'll probably wait another 12 months or so and then possibly then sell my A7R II and then move up to the A9R and still keep the A9. But I won't be getting rid of my A7R II at this stage at all. And if you were thinking about still buying one, I would definitely say go and get it. They're a very good camera for the price at the moment, and they're still going to be relevant for a long, long time. Ben said, I'm looking at getting an 85mm. Is it worth to go the extra money to go to the 1.4, or do you think the 1.8 is enough? Ben, if you've got the money, go 1.4. It's definitely nicer to have that 1.4, but I'm quite happy with 1.8. So if you think the money is a little bit of an issue, definitely go for a 1.8. And like I said, I'm shooting 1.8 all the time, and I'm happy with that. I don't want to be carrying around that weight, Ben. So for me, I could get the GM version of the Sony lens if I wanted to, because I'm running a business. But I don't want that lens because I don't want to be lugging around that weight. It's also slower in focusing too. You'll find the 1.4 lenses are slower in focusing than the 1.8 lenses. There's much more glass to lug around and move as well. And I just don't want that weight. So for me personally, I'm just happy with the 1.8 lens. So if I was you, I'd buy the 1.8. What else have we got? Photo Trekker said, what do you think the yet to be released Sony 135mm FE price will be and how fast? Oh, I don't know. It's going to be expensive. It would have to be probably more than the GM version of the 85. I've got no idea. It also might depend too on how fast it will be. If it's a 2.8 lens, it may be a similar price to the 85 1.4. If it's faster than that, though, if it's a 1.8 lens or something like that, it's going to be expensive. So I've got no idea, but I would love to try it when it comes out because 135 to shoot models would be beautiful. Jess said, I have now used the 2470 f4 for a while on my Sony a7 II and now also use my Sony a7R II and cannot understand the negative hype on the web. I can see no negative hype on my picture. And I'm the same, Jess. I actually quite like that lens and I use that lens in studio a lot. I'm quite happy with it. Again, I don't want to be lugging around big lenses. For me, it's just not what I want to do anymore. And you know what? It confirmed it when I used that Canon and the 70-200 2.8. That was terrible. I hated lugging that thing around. My back was hurting by the end of the night. And it was just too big to lug around and hold. And that definitely confirmed to me that I do not want to get the GM 2.8 version of the 70-200. I'm happy with the 70-200 f4. It's so light in your hand and I'm happy with it. I'm just better off, honestly, to crank up the ISO. And these cameras now, you can pump up the ISO, and the f4 is not really much of an issue anymore. Clearly, if you're dealing with very low light, though, it would become an issue, but then I'd use the Batis or something. Studio 96 said, I have the same Metabones. You must open the lens with the Metabones. Yes, you have. You have to actually open the lens up with the Metabones. So you open up the lens first. You use actually this to control the aperture. So I usually open up the lens first on the lens to the highest aperture. Then I'll use the let me bring it in so you can see it. I open up the lens first to wide open on here. Then I'll use the aperture on the Metabones to control the your actual aperture. So that's the way they work on there. So I open the lens up first to maximum aperture, then you use the Metabones to adjust your aperture down here. And it's very smooth, it's clickless. Great for video because it's clickless again. Thanks for that, Studio 96, you're right. No worries, Ben, that's fine. Keith's just said, hey, good to see you here, Keith. He's just joined us. So once again, guys, if you if you're popping in late and you're seeing this late, please join my Facebook group. It's for you guys, not just for me. It's the Photography and Video Fusion School. It's for anyone. It's not just for Sony users. It's for anyone. Canon shooters, Pentax shooters, Panasonic, Fuji, anyone, Nikon, come and join us, because it's not Sony related. It's just about showing all my work behind the scenes. You can see here that I've posted one of Ashley before and after. The one on the left is the after. The one on the right is the before. I'm just about to post another one shortly that'll have a before and after as well. And I'll be doing behind the scenes, things like that for you guys too, that you'll be able to see there as well. And basically, I haven't put limitations on, like, you know, you can promote your own business on there. The only thing you can't do is sell. I'm not allowing selling of stuff. But you can pop in, put your reference or links to your Instagrams in there, because I want you to get something out of this as well. This is a thank you from me to you guys. So let's get that moving. Let me go back to here. Jess said, do you use the speed of your Sony A9 because it may cause a terrible lot of pictures to look through? Very rarely, Jess. I'm only using that if I need to. If I was doing dance shots, for instance, where they're moving a lot, I probably would have it on high. Apart from that, I'm just using it on the electronic shutter and just using single exposure like I would with any other camera. For me, it's not about run and gun or, you know, just machine gunning type work for me, and most of my brides actually always comment on that, about how slow and methodical I actually do work. I don't want to give brides 3,000 to 4,000 images. I'm giving them a maximum of between 800 to say 1,100 images as a total. And to be honest, the amount that I'm shooting is not much higher than that, because I'm not deleting many images at all. I'm very particular on how I shoot. I work very slow. And there's no excuse for that really in the Sony, because you're seeing the exposures, particularly in the camera. So there's no real excuse for giving bad exposures. The thing I can say to people that are just starting, new photographers, is slow down. And that's what is so hard for most young photographers, particularly just starting, is they just go bang, 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 bang. And you don't need to do that, guys. Slow down, concentrate, think on what you're doing, and take one shot, 2 shots maximum, and move on. And that's the way that I like to work. It's none of this just shooting away, machine gunning type of exposures, and then you've got 8,000 images to look through. I couldn't think of anything worse. Any last questions, guys, before we call it a day? I'll leave all the links down below so you can see all those news articles that we went through there. You can have a look at them down below. I'll also post another video up shortly of another shoot. That'll probably be tomorrow, or it may be Monday. I'm not sure what I'll be doing on the weekend, but weddings start for me again next week, so then it becomes more full-on wedding season for me again. So I'll obviously have a lot more of those sort of images to show to you as well. So we might call it a day there, guys. I think a coffee's calling me. It's actually saying coffee. And remember, someone asked me yesterday, can I say an American accent? And I can say coffee. I love that when I went to New York, and that's what I always say now. Can I have a coffee, please? Do you like my American accent? Time for a coffee. I love it. That's the only thing I can say in American. Ben said, how much do you edit that many photos? How much do you edit that many photos, color correct only, and then fine tune? Yes. Look, what I do, Ben and I will talk about this too when I go back onto my wedding photography business. I haven't gone back to that for a while. I must do. One of the packages that I deal with, the cheapest package has images that are only edited for print. So they will be edited lightly for things like color, contrast, sharpness, things like that. Excuse me. No real retouching done. No retouching done at all though. What I'll then do is they then choose 20 of their favorite images. I'll give them that on a disc. They'll choose 20 images that they want me to highly retouch, and they're the images that I will work on fully. And that's how that works for me. So I'm only actually editing fully 20 images of all the images that I give them. The rest of the images are just edited lightly for exposure and for print. And I call that retouching for print, or editing for print. And that's limited, that's stated in their contract. Then they choose 20 photos that they want me to actually retouch. Photo Trekker said the Batis 135mm is around 2,000 US, so I'm expecting the new Sony, it'll be more than that, I think. It'll be way more than that, I'd say, especially if it's a 1.8 lens. Photo Trekker said, have a good day. MC Presso said, pleasure to join. Keith said, at Ben Ashford, you better. Not sure what that's about. Jess said, I'm on Facebook page and think it's good, and I'll be even better over time. And it will. Guys, that Facebook page is going to grow, I can guarantee it. it's certainly going to have a lot of information for you guys. It's only just started, so it'll certainly grow over a period of time, and I'm looking forward to making it grow. Make sure you keep using it, and that's the place you can ask me questions, and other people in there as well, and I can get back to you a lot easier than I can, say, over YouTube and email and things like that. Alright guys, well, we might call that a day. It's been almost an hour. So I'll see you all again for the next video, and I'll say good day because I am Australian, and hope you like my American accent because I'm just about to go out for a coffee, and I'll see you all again soon for the next video. Make sure you ask to join the Facebook page, guys. Catch you soon. Bye.